Sid Rosenberg Show.
If you've been following the political climate of 2015, you know we're in a year where people want to hear straight talk instead of political promises. There's one man running for state Congress who never pulls his punches and has been telling it like it is for nearly 2 decades on the radio. Sid Rosenberg. Sid Rosenberg has never been one to turn down a challenge or shirk from a fight. A family man who knows South Florida and the issues that matter. Sid Rosenberg is the clear choice to do the job for District 21. Like many of us, he's a transplant, New Yorker, and he'll take that New York energy and convert it into results. Just ask famous New Yorker Woody Allen.
He's a dynamite kid, you know. Plus, he's been working out. You ever see the guns on this guy? Even if he can't get his colleagues to side with him, he can carry a voluptuous intern in each arm.
No McDonald's arches, no Chick-fil-A, no auto dealerships, no strip clubs? No way. Not under his watch. Sid says they're all welcome with open arms. Take back Boca. Vote Sid Rosenberg for State Congress.
My name is Sid Rosenberg, and I approve this nonsense.
Question about Marco Rubio. You talked, there's a quote you were attributed to you yesterday, I believe is accurate. You said, you compared him to President Obama. You said, look, a president who came in and said the same kind of thing, new and improved, hope and change, and he didn't have the leadership skills to fix things. I just want to be direct about this. Are you saying that Senator Rubio does not have the leadership skills to fix things?
There were two thoughts in that sentence that I had, but yeah, I think I have the leadership skills to fix things, and that's my strength, and that's what I talk about. And Marco was a member of the House of Representatives when I was governor, and he followed my lead, and I'm proud of that.
But you do not think he has the leadership skills to fix things?
It's not known. Barack Obama didn't end up having them, and he won an election based on the belief that people had that he could, and he didn't even try.
That was from Morning Joe, right? My good buddy Joe Scarborough.
Correct. Yes, it was.
My good friend Mike Barnacle, the whole crew. Jeb Bush, tough on Marco Rubio. Thought those guys loved each other. Well, I learned that's not the case. And how did I learn that? By reading Florida Playbook on Politico. This guy, Mark Caputo, is the real deal, man. He's been on this show once, and I actually stole him from the Joyce Kaufman show. And he's better here. So, and his playbook is great. And there's a lot of things I need to discuss with Mark, so let's get right to it. Our good friend, Mark Caputo. How you doing, pal?
I'm great. How are you?
You want to start with Miami, Florida State, or you want to go into the politics? Up to you.
We can go anywhere you want, although I do think Miami is going to lose to Florida State. As a Miami fan, I almost hope it, because it'll precipitate the firing of Al Golden, and we could possibly get Butch Davis back.
It's funny you say that. You know, the Dolphins fired Joe Philbin yesterday, and it was a loud cry from the local football fan to do that. And, you know, from flying airplanes over the stadium to banners all over town, I feel like there's been even a louder cry to get rid of Al Golden.
I do. I think some of it wasn't justified for a while. The biggest problem with the Canes is the defense. Mark Onofrio, it's actually D'Onofrio, but there's no D in his name, is Al Golden's friend, and really he hasn't gotten rid of the guy. But there's also problems on the offense when there shouldn't be. At a certain point, it just looks like Al Golden is unable to lead.
Yeah, but here's the problem, and we'll get off Miami for a second. You know, my good friend, the moderator of Meet the Press on the show every Friday, Chuck Todd, like you, Caputo, is also a diehard Hurricane fan, and it's not just Al. Randy Shannon was a miserable coach before him. Coker had no success at the end of his stay. This just didn't happen. This is going on now for the better part of a decade and a half. I think Miami fans need to come to the crashing realization that this has become a very mediocre football program, at best.
I think we just got cursed by a Santeria priest or Palomeombe or whatever it was. But I do believe that there are coaches who know how to win, and Butch Davis was one of them. And Butch Davis has expressed interest in coming back. He's available. Let's check it out.
Do you think Miami would do that? Would they bring him back?
I would hope they would, but it seems they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, so we'll see.
All right. One thing also I want to discuss with you is I know you heard my my campaign commercial, which was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really. What's funny, Mark, is that it's kind of a gag, you know. I'm watching all these debates, and local politics suck. I hate, Wasserman, Schultz, and others, and that's a strong word, but I do. And national politics are a disaster, too. So I said, why not throw my name into the ring? And I made that silly commercial where I curse. So it's obviously not for real. I got to tell you, Mark, the amount of people, big money people that contacted me in Boca Raton that said, I'll write you a check today, you got to run, was astounding. I mean, that's how desperate people are.
Yeah, well, there was an old movie with Richard Pryor called Brewster's Millions.
Yes.
And it's very similar to that, where a guy who winds up thinking he could throw away money by running for, I think it's Congress, realizes that he can almost get elected because he's the only person telling the truth.
So do you think if, in fact, I decided to do this, forgetting about the money I would need, because somebody told me I need $1 million to raise $1 million to beat a guy like Ted Deutsch. What do people like Ted Deutsch, Lois Frankel, what kind of competition do I face?
Well, understand it's also the districts. If you look at Ted Deutsch's district as it is, and as it has been proposed, it's unclear how it's going to shake out. That decision will probably be made in late October or November, ultimately by the Florida Supreme Court now. Those are pretty safe districts for a Democrat. Those aren't really swing districts. So I wouldn't advise someone to challenge Ted Deutsch or Lois Frankel in their districts. Same thing with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And the same is true of certain Republican candidates as well, albeit, we're in South Florida where it tends to be a little more Democratic leaning.
Well, that sucks for me then, because even though I'm liberal on my social views, I tend to lean more to the right, and so that sucks for me in 21 and for my friend Joe Kaufman in 23, right?
Well, yeah, Joe Kaufman has lost before, and if past his prologue, he's going to lose again.
Son of a gun. Well, how do we change this? If we were able to get the House and the Senate go Republican, how can we change things here? What has to happen?
I'm pretty fatalistic about the amount of change that's going to happen in this nation in the halls of Congress. I think we're kind of beyond that. By and large, my feeling is that our problem is economic, but it's a macroeconomic problem that is not necessarily one of politics or politicians. It's the lack of a social compact between employer and employed. My grandfather's day, even to a degree my father's day, you could have a job and stay at the same company and have good benefits and retire. Now you can't have that. The employer barely pays you, the benefits suck, and you have to constantly move around, and one man can no longer support his family and have his kids go to college.
True.
You can't blame the politicians for that.
So who do I blame?
I think these things just have sort of happened over time, but certainly these multinational corporations, which is not an employer of everyone,
right.
Have not really kept up their end of the social compact
right.
because they don't recognize it.
Right.
We also have an economy that's based on derivatives. Like, you no longer invest in a company because, hey, it's going to build good roads. You invest in it because, hey, it's going to build good profits.
Right.
And some of those profits are built on offshoring jobs or keeping things really lean and working people to death and not giving them a lot of good benefits. That's not the only problem, but it's a big problem. It's one we don't discuss a lot.
So maybe I can lie about these things. I can run for office and say I'm going to fix all of that.
There you go. Maybe you will get elected.
Tell me about this rift, which you do detail very well in Florida Playbook. I urge and recommend all of my listeners who love this stuff, the political junkies, to go to Politico and subscribe to Mark Caputo's Florida Playbook. You even have a couple of really good quotes here from Donald Trump where he talks about hate between the two guys. There was a time where Marco Rubio would say that, Jeb Bush, my mentor, I love the guy. He's kind of paved the way. And now it seems that has completely eroded, yes?
I would say they're still friends. But when you run against each other for a political office in the same race, you're inevitably going to clash, and we're slowly seeing signs of it. Now, the principals themselves, Marco and Jeb, are still being very respectful. They still like each other. But what you often see is right below the principal level.
Would you say that Jeb Bush, I played the clip for you coming in on Morning Joe yesterday, saying that comparing Marco Rubio to Barack Obama is respectful on any level?
Well, he's not coming out and saying it, so yes, I would say it's respectful on that level. But that's a good example of the way Marco handles things. He's very good at rope-a-doping. And so when asked about Jeb's comment later, Rubio had a kind of, oh, bless his heart reaction, like, Almost, I understand why Jeb's doing that because he's in a troubled, dark place. So Rubio's done a very good job of taking these punches, rolling with them, and then coming back. And he's done the same thing with Donald Trump. It's among the reasons, or it's an example of the reasons that Rubio is starting to kind of slowly climb up in the polls and actually might have a decent shot of winning, if not an early state, some of the later states, and being really in contention. But Rubio's large problem is it's going to be one of money and organization. And his home base of Florida, a lot of that money and organization has gone to Jeb. So part of Rubio's calculus is he's kind of got to wait for Jeb to die, and that might not be an easy thing because while Jeb has made a number of mistakes and a lot of conservatives say they don't like him, his campaign really is built to last. And Jeb, whom I covered when he was governor up in Tallahassee, did govern as a conservative. He did have an effective record as a conservative, and that's not saying I endorse him, but when I hear people today say, "Oh, Jeb should just run in the Democratic primary,"
No.
I mean, those people are lunatics.
Yeah, no, they're crazy. No. Although the governors, of course, have not done a very good job here so far. We know that. Scott Walker gone, Rick Perry gone. The others not doing very well in the polls. So the governors, at least, not up to a great start in this GOP race. And like you said, you covered Jeb Bush here in Florida as the governor, as well as Marco in the Senate. Now, I'll ask you flat out, forget about the campaign, forgetting about the money they've raised, because like you said, Jeb's campaign is built to last. He's raised over $100 million. Had a great week I heard in New York City, too, at all those breakfasts. With all that said, who do you think is more presidential ready, Mark Caputo, Marco Rubio, or Jeb Bush?
Well, it really would depend on how one defines presidential ready. So I'm going to sidestep that to a degree. But I could say is having covered Jeb and having covered Marco, they're both very smart people. They're studious. They're serious people. And, certainly either of them could make a good president. I'm not limiting my choices to them, but since the question refers to them, neither of them is a slouch. These are serious people who are running serious campaigns, and they seriously think they can make a difference. Now, I, being a fatalist, wonder how much of a difference one man can make, but we'll see.
It's
or
funny.
One woman, I should say, just in case anyone accuses me of shirking Hillary Clinton.
Exactly right. Who was very funny on SNL. I'll tell you what, I had the opportunity to get pretty close to Marco when he ran against Kendrick Meeks and Charlie a couple of years ago, a race, of course, that he eventually won. And I know you brought up Charlie in your Florida playbook this week. How is he faring these days, Charlie?
Charlie's probably going to be the next congressman from the St. Petersburg area. The Congressional District 13 was drawn in such a way by the Republican legislature to make sure that it didn't lean too Democratic. And it turns out that seat was one of the ones targeted by the state Supreme Court as being unlawfully gerrymandered. Long story short, in drawing CD 13 to include all of St. Petersburg now, that congressional district is basically tailor-made for Charlie Crist. He said he's probably going to run. If he does, he'll probably win. Now, these are probablys and not definitely, so there's a good chance we're going to see him as our next congressman in the St. Petersburg, Clearwater area.
Tell me about this Rick Scott staffer that Donald Trump added to his campaign.
I don't know her that well, actually. So how Donald Trump fares with her, I'm not quite sure. Running in Florida is kind of a complicated thing. We're a big state. We have 10 media markets.
Right.
And it takes quite a bit of money or free media to run, and Donald Trump's the master of free media. Also, especially in the Republican primary, about half, if not more, of the vote is cast before Election Day by absentee ballots and in-person early voting. Republicans tend to do a little more absentee, that is, vote by mail voting. And that takes a certain amount of organization to have. You have to not only find the voters who are going to be likely to vote for you, you have to make sure to get an absentee ballot in their hand, hit them up with mail, call them, and get them to vote. And that takes a real great amount of organization. With Donald Trump, beyond him being a very exciting figure and one who generates a lot of buzz, I'm not sure if he has a classic campaign structure, or if he even knows he has to have one in a state like Florida. Maybe he thinks he doesn't need one because, the polls show he's winning here just like everywhere else.
Yeah, no, he's doing great, although he is embroiled in a controversy here. He's very upset about the planes. Again, this is in Florida Playbook on Political. Very upset about the planes flying over Mar-a-Lago. So he's in a contentious battle with Palm Beach. What's the latest there?
Well, he's been in it for years. Palm Beach is asking, the Palm Beach International Airport is asking to dismiss his latest lawsuit. I have to say, when I was a reporter at the Palm Beach Post, I lived on the West Palm Beach side of the lake there, and I was under the flight path just like Mar-a-Lago. We were, hell, me and Donald were almost neighbors.
Right.
I can certainly understand why he would want them to fly elsewhere, but the reality is that airport was there when he bought Mar-a-Lago. I'm not quite sure how he's going to be able to win, considering, look, you knew the risks when you bought the place. Too bad.
Hey, on the way out, are you going to be up in Orlando next month for the Big Sunshine Summit?
I more than likely will. In fact, I need to get off my lazy duff and start planning out my trips, because I'm going to have to be spending quite a bit of time in the next 2 months in Orlando, and that's going to be one of the trips I'm more than likely going to make.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be there doing our show live from there, so hopefully you can sit down with us live and meet all the guys in person. It's going to be a big thrill, I'll tell you right now.
Well, it sounds wonderful. I will probably do it. I just don't want to commit yet because, again, I got a lot of moving parts.
Right, of course. So on the way out, though, Mark, and I don't say this to make you feel good, because you've been on the show now twice the last 3 weeks, and I would hope you come on every single week. I say it because it's really a great piece for people who want to subscribe to Florida Playbook on Politico. How simple is that?
Just Google Florida Playbook Politico, and at the top right-hand corner, you'll see a subscribe button. Click it, put in your email, and it should show up in your email the next day.
It's great stuff, and you're great on the air, too. We love having you on, my good friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully we'll talk again next week. Great work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you much. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care. That's Mark Caputo. And I do recommend, I urge all of you interested in local politics and national politics to read his stuff each and every week. Florida Playbook on Politico. 844-640-6464. Short break. We're back after this.
Okay, guys. Welcome to paradise.
Welcome back to the Sid Rosenberg Show on 640 Sports.
Police say Kirsten Cervini was with two men in the hours before her death, one who lives in the building just behind me on West 16th Street. Police are still out here tonight, keeping guard at the building where Cervini was found wedged between the building and unconscious on Sunday morning. She is a 38-year-old married mother of three who police sources say likely overdosed after a long night of drinking and doing cocaine.
Well, that was one of my first thoughts, that, she looked like somebody who had been out partying a very long time.
This woman, who doesn't want to be identified, lives directly across the street from the building where Kirsten Cervini's body was found. Police sources say Cervini was in the city Saturday night partying with friends, first at a hotel, then at a Lower East Side bar. Sources also say surveillance video shows Cervini entering this Chelsea apartment building with a male TV producer friend around 4:30 Sunday morning. 4 hours later, that same video shows her limp body being carried out by that friend and another man who lives in the building. Investigators say the friend called 911, but the two men left Cervini in the doorway before help arrived. Police sources say the man who lives here is a drug dealer, and Cervini and her friend stopped by to score cocaine. Preliminary autopsy results are inconclusive, but it's unlikely anyone will be criminally charged. Cervini lived with her husband Andrew and their three kids in Manhasset, Long Island, and she was a dermatologist at this office in Williston Park. Cervini recently bought flowers from the florist next to her office. Workers call her outgoing and cheerful.
Last time I talked to you, you were lonely and out of place. You were looking down on me, lost out in space. Laid underneath the stars, strung out and feeling brave. Watch the red orange glow, watch you float away. Down here in the atmosphere, garbage and city lights. You're gonna save your tired soul, you're gonna save our lives. I turned on the radio to find you on satellite. I'm waiting for the sky to fall, I'm waiting for a sign. And all we are is all so far. You're falling back to me.
a horrible story that we've been on all day here, 2 days really, about this young mom. Amongst the 9,000 other things we've covered today, the Joe Philbin firing, which of course pales in comparison of importance and horror. Joe Philbin fired by the Dolphins. CeCe Sabathia going to rehab as the Yankees get set to take on the Houston Astros tonight. The Seahawks beat the Lions to close out Week 4 of the NFL season. We've had Mark Caputo on talking about local and national politics. John Montone, live from New York City, talking about this story. And CeCe Sabathia. Liz Mandel with some more topics, sex and relationships. And Tommy Verducci, CNN, SI, MLB Network, and Fox, talking about all the baseball playoffs, which, of course, again, Yankees and Astros from the Bronx tonight, Arrieta and the Cubs in Pittsburgh tomorrow. The Royals will start their series against the winner of the Houston Yankee game tonight on Thursday. The Blue Jays and Texas Rangers start on Thursday. Mets and Dodgers start on Friday, as does St. Louis, taking on the winner of the one game between the Cubs and the Pirates tomorrow night. But going back to this horrible story, once again, a beautiful, not pretty, beautiful mom of 3, 38 years old, living this double life, living on Manhasset, which is one of the nicest neighborhoods in America. In terms of taxes, it's as high as it gets, I believe. Mike Francesa lives there. And she's a dermatologist, her husband is a dermatologist. They live in a gorgeous home. They're members of the local country club where supposedly she was a great, not good, great tennis player. Often seen jogging with her husband on weekend mornings and very busy with the kids. Everybody loved her. And she seemed like that storybook couple. But she had a bad problem, cocaine. And she would run back and forth to the city. And the more you read about this, it seems often meeting girlfriends in the city, doing drugs and drinking all night, staying at hotels, and eventually ending up at this apartment where they say she had been before with this ex-con cab driver who was a coke dealer and her buddy who's an HBO producer who right now is working on a movie with James Franco about the New York porn industry in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And after going back to that Chelsea apartment, I think she started her night drinking and snorting at 6:30 Saturday night. About 2:30, she finally left some bar on the Lower East Side, went to this apartment in Chelsea. Well, I guess they really amped up their drug use because that's where the coke dealer was. And 4 hours later, with her panties in her pocketbook and completely topless, she was found by the door, naked and dead. The guys left her there. They walked up and down 7th Avenue. They were wired and drunk and nervous, and she died. You know, you brought up something earlier about if anybody's going to be criminally responsible for this, and I don't know the answer to that. Now, they already let the HBO guy go. I guess he's not. So if the three of us, you know, this is a horrible hypothetical, but we're sitting around, we buy drugs, and you're sitting around doing them, and I die when I'm with you guys, then you're not really responsible. No, but here's the only issue, is one of the two guys, I guess, supplied the drugs. So he would be responsible, no or no?
I would think so, and if he's also like a drug dealer and supplying to other people.
See, remember when Philip Seymour Hoffman died?
That's what I'm thinking of.
And they said they were going to go after the drug dealers, and they're like, well, you can't do that. You know, that's, you know, Philip bought the drugs and he died, but you can't go after the dealers.
And he kind of did it. He went like to his own little apartment, did it by himself. I think he was isolated, right? He was alone.
There was nobody else there when he died.
Yeah, like she was with them. I mean,
she was with the guy that supposedly is a drug dealer.
Right. She's obviously responsible. I mean, it's her life. She did it. But, I mean, especially if the guy's a drug dealer and he's dealing to other people, I would imagine there'd be some.
He's been arrested twice before. I think he's even done jail time a couple times before. But I don't know legally what, at least in this specific case.
Right.
They did find those little bags, you know, those plastic bags that the cocaine was in. They found plastic bags in that apartment. I don't believe they were, I think they were empty. I'm sure there's some residue in those bags, but, you know, he could say they're not mine. They're Johnson's or they're hers.
Right, yeah.
So.
No, you're right.
Criminally, I don't know if they could really do anything about this.
They could probably arrest him and try him. Now, is he going to get convicted?
Try him for what?
I don't know, for, I don't know. I
don't see it happening. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
I guess not. No, I guess not.
Let's go to our legal analyst on the program.
Perfect.
Eric Langell. Eric, good morning. How are you?
Oh, beautiful.
Looking at this case, looking at this specific case, anybody, those other two gentlemen or guys in the apartment that were there when she died, dragged her downstairs and left her at the front door to die, either one of those guys responsible in terms of the drugs?
I don't I can't see it. I don't.
You don't see it?
Belushi, who was the woman who administered, like, she gave him the shot.
Did she actually shoot him with with the what do you call that thing? The power
Speedball.
Speedball. That's right. It's half heroin, half cocaine.
Right. She actually did that. Tied his arm off and shot him up.
And she was not responsible.
I don't think so. No. Nothing happened to her. So, and that's about as direct as you can get.
What famous actor that died relatively recently showed up at the bungalow that night? Belushi had gone out to buy more drugs. He wasn't there. What famous actor who died recently showed up at the bungalow that night, missed Belushi? Belushi came back and died that night. What famous actor?
Got me. I do not know that.
No idea, do you?
No, none.
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen. That's
Thank
right.
you.
Really? All right.
No, it's not Leslie Nielsen, you moron.
I thought he was our legal expert, Dan Abrams over here.
One hint, you ready? For this actor that showed up at the bungalow that night. The first hint is suicide. The first hint is
Robin Williams.
Very good. Robin Williams and Belushi were not good buddies, best friends, and did drugs together a lot, believe it or not, around the Mork and Mindy days. Anyway, so if you're a lawyer out there and you have any idea, because, again, I think the three of us are under the impression that there's a dead girl who OD'd, in all likelihood. There are drugs involved. There's an ex-con sitting there doing the drugs with them, and yet we don't think, the three of us, collectively, that anybody is responsible legally for her death.
I mean, I don't know if we all know all the facts, but I mean, how did she end up at the door? How was she half naked?
The surveillance tape, they actually, the two guys carried her downstairs, called 911, left her at the front door, so by the time 911 showed up, they were gone. They were walking down 7th Avenue. They tried to help her. She was already gone.
But, I mean, shouldn't they have stayed? I mean, I don't know what the responsibility is of someone.
I don't think they have to stay.
I mean, you just leave her sitting on the door and call 911 and then take off for the night?
I guess, because they were all drugged up. They're all drunk. Listen, drugged up and drunk. Now you got to face police and paramedics, and you got a dead girl there. I mean, it's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying foul play or anything, but
there was no foul play.
Seems suspicious in some weird way, right?
No, it doesn't.
She just had an OD. They freaked out. They said, "Let's get the hell out of here."
Let's get the hell out of here.
We did our part. We called 911.
Have you ever listen? You've been drunk. You've been high. The last thing you want to do, you want to talk about a buzzkill.
Oh, of course.
Somebody dies. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to get the hell out of there. Of course you are. No?
Oh, well,
you're going to stick around?
It's just a bad scene. Well, I mean, it's just a... You know, she's half naked. I don't know. I guess what was going on.
Maybe they were trying to pound her chest, and that's why the shirt came off. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Listen, it's not. This is horrible. She's got 3 kids, and it looks like a loving husband. But is it possible that she was coked up and drunk and banging this convict for more coke? Of course it is. Of course it is. You would think she would need to do that. A gorgeous, respectful, wealthy, I guess, dermatologist, but. She had this seedy second life. Why were her panties in her pocketbook? Why did the panties come off?
Well, that's a good question. And how did they end up in the pocketbook?
She put them there, obviously.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Someone's
so
telling
obviously.
me after the autopsy they could be charged with involuntary manslaughter.
How? Did somebody did they shove her face into the cocaine? Did they shoot her up with it?
No, I agree. You're right. It's her.
No, I don't know if I'm.
No. But I'm saying she probably did it in her own will, and it wasn't the first time.
If they can find out, she had been back to that apartment many, many times, supposedly. If they can find out that this guy, the drug dealer, if someone drinks too much, goes home and dies of alcohol poisoning, does the bartender get arrested? That's the question from Ricky. I guess they don't, but they can.
You can. You absolutely can.
Yes.
I worked in the restaurant industry, and it was every 3 months you had a meeting, and if you didn't cut off someone at the bar that you knew was drunk and they drove home and got a DUI.
Now they'd lose their job, but would they be in legal trouble?
Yes.
Okay.
They would absolutely be in legal trouble.
Now in this case, because this guy is a dealer and she'd been there before, because he's a dealer and he's an ex-con. I still.
There's a lot of strings in the story that have to be uncovered. I mean, this is like you said. Is the guy a drug dealer? Is he not? Has she been there 10, 15 times? And this happened to be the one time she died? There's a lot of unanswered questions.
But either way, if she voluntarily, which she did, we know that, went to that apartment. She wasn't kidnapped. And voluntarily went to that apartment, did what she did, and died. then I just don't see any way possible, unless they went to that apartment after she died and found tons of cocaine, that they can link those drugs specifically to the ex-con, his apartment.
Sergeant Eli's telling me that they had the means and tools to cause death in the if she came to their apartment.
Well, his apartment. It was just one guy.
His apartment, right.
The HBO guy that was his dealer.
Right. So if they came to his apartment and he had the means, I guess, to cause death, I guess there could be. Or an attorney can argue that he didn't. But there is something there to argue for or against. So he could be tried. And
could be.
Yeah, he could be tried but not convicted. He could get off. Because he had...
You know what it is? I always feel bad when somebody dies. And, again, she was an addict and had her issues. But I always feel bad when somebody dies and no one's responsible. I feel weird, like somebody dies. But I guess there are certain times when people die, and you hate to say this, but it's nobody's fault but their own.
Yeah. No, and in this case, I believe it's her.
That's probably so.
And that's why I'm stumbling over this. But it's sad to say, but it's probably her fault. And like you said, she's got 3 kids. One of them's a year old. We'll never know who their mother was.
No, they'll know. And unfortunately, they're going to know because they're going to read clippings about this horrendous night.
Yeah.
And that makes it even worse. 844-640-6464. Back right after this.
Sid Rosenberg.
Didn't we ask Karen Curtis a month ago to get in touch with Ann Coulter, get her on the show?
6 months ago?
And what bullcrap excuse did she give us that she couldn't make it?
I'm so sorry. I've been dying to do your show, and I don't think you have to bring up that I came up with wimp-ass excuses. Guess where I'm leaving for tomorrow? Back to L.A. But in a few weeks, I'll be back in New York, and we'll do it again.
You swear?
Yes, I've been dying to do your show.
And you were great. Quick, kind of like my sex life. It was quick, but it was great.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Sid.
Sid Rosenberg on 640 Sports.
There's a rumor President Obama might go to Roseburg, Douglas County. The funerals start Thursday, and I guess they will extend into next week. How will the president be treated if he does indeed travel to Roseburg?
Well, I think the president, first of all, is not welcome in the community, and that isn't just my opinion. We've talked to dozens upon dozens of citizens, some family members of the victims, our elected officials, and you may have a copy. If you don't, I'd be happy to read from it on the air, that our Douglas County commissioners, along with our Douglas County elected sheriff, who is very popular, and our chief of police, all came to a consensus language about him not being welcome here to grandstand for political purposes, and I'd be happy to read that or share it.
Don't read it, but just encapsulate why they don't want President Obama to come.
Well, the bottom line, Bill, is that a number of people believe that when the president opened his press conference, we still haven't finished counting the bodies on the campus right behind me. We haven't identified whose children were killed and whose were not. And even at that same moment, he is saying some people will accuse me of politicizing this issue. And he goes on to say, but it should be. So he not only acknowledged that it could be politicized, he was doing so deliberately. So now he wants to come to our community and stand on the corpses of our loved ones to make some kind of a political point. And it isn't going to be well received, not by our people, not by the families, and not even by our elected officials.
With a little luck, we can help it out. We can make this whole damn thing work out. With a little love, we can lay it down. Can't you feel a town exploding? There is no end to what we can do together. There is no end. The willow turns its back on in clever weather. And if he can do it, we can do it. Just me and you.
Paul McCartney and Wings with a little luck. People of Roseburg, Oregon don't want the president there, that creep. Andrew Abrams in Palm Beach Post talking about the Joe Philbin firing, the Dan Campbell hiring. Coming up in about 8 minutes, Mark Feinsand. Yankees and Astros, 1-game playoff for the right to play Kansas City in the Bronx. Later on tonight, he'll be here in about 37 minutes. But that story you just heard, which was on Bill O'Reilly last night, thanks, Bill, courtesy of Fox. prompted me, inspired me to put this on Facebook and Twitter today. President Obama not welcome in Roseburg after politicizing the awful tragedy. Good! Oregonians showing they are compassionate Americans. And that, of course, was the impetus for all the liberals on my page to go nuts, including Jeff Cross. Remember Jeff Cross?
Yeah, the tight end.
No.
Defensive player, right? Defensive end.
Offensive lineman.
Offensive lineman, huh?
Yeah.
The guy from Atlanta.
He played for the Florida Gators and the Miami Dolphins. What are you talking about?
He's doing the Atlanta broadcast.
You mean Randy Cross?
Oh, I'm thinking of Randy Cross.
First of all, Randy Cross was an offensive lineman for Joe Montana. Jeff Cross played for the Gators and the Dolphins. Bernie Kosar's good buddy. Pretty good player, too. He says he's all over my... He is the biggest liberal pain in the ass. I've invited him on the show 1,000,000 times. Talk Gators, talk Dolphins, and politics, because he's on my page every single time I post something political. And he's good. I mean, I think he's... I hate his opinions, but at least he's got them. Jeff Cross... Gator Dolphin says the president has held the same position on gun control since he's been in office, and he simply reiterates it under the circumstances, unlike Ben Carson. You got to take a shot at...
Of course. Right, you got to take a shot at the Republican, right?
Joel Graham says, I hope after the next mass shooting of innocent students, Obama just keeps his mouth shut like a good leader should, and then continues to keep his mouth shut after the next one. And the next one, and the one after that, and then the one after that, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one that are surely to follow after. And then some guy, Mark Evans, some really annoying liberal, sent me something on Obama, again, extolling his virtues. Jeff Cross was a defensive lineman, thank you.
D lineman.
Yeah, D lineman.
No.
Randy Cross was an offensive lineman.
With the Niners.
Right.
We're not saying it was wrong of Obama to say that, because even the day of, you said some of the points he made were valid, and you agreed with him. But how fast he jumped in front of the microphone, it took him 4 days to address the serious situation because he hid, because he was embarrassed, because Putin actually came up with a plan that the world supported to get rid of ISIS. And 3 hours after the shooting, they're still counting the bodies. They haven't even notified the families.
Right.
He's in front of the microphone.
Right.
So he could have gotten in front of the mic and made a statement and then come back a couple hours later.
That's right.
And then pushed his gun.
That's what he should have done.
Gun agenda.
That's what he should have done. His timing sucked, and it was flat out.
It's almost like he was waiting for it, and he's like, "Bang! Write me a speech. Let's go. I'm going out there right now."
Sensitive. That's right.
That's kind of the way it seems. Because when you
no, it doesn't seem that way. That's what it was.
That's the way it is. Because there's so many other issues that he hides from.
Like what? Give me an example of one. Besides Putin and Syria.
The Putin and Syria. The French train attack.
Right.
It took him days to come out. They gave.
No, he never came out. He never did.
Right. It was a private meeting and some letter he sent them.
And eventually he did invite those guys to the White House long after they were celebrated as heroes in France.
They got the Medal of Honor, the highest. What's the word I'm looking for here?
Medal.
The highest medal, the highest honor in France.
Well,
and not a word from our president.
How about the fact that there's a connection here, that one of those three guys that did, in fact, stop that terrorist on that train in France before he committed mass murder, one of those three guys that you're talking about that got a hero welcome in France and eventually was recognized here in the United States, is on Dancing with the Stars. Where does he live? Roseburg, Oregon. Where did he go to school? Umpqua Community College. That's his school. He said if he had not been on Dancing with the Stars, he would have been in class that day when the gunman killed all those people. This is the same guy on that train. Same guy. One of the three brave Americans to stop that terrorist that rears from Roseburg, Oregon, and went to that community college. So I would have been in class that day.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, right?
That is crazy. And there was someone on the campus that did actually jump in and try to save these people.
The Marine guy.
He
got shot 30 times. He was like Nordberg.
Chris Mintz.
That's right.
And he's in surgery, and
he's doing
there's a GoFund page actually for him. But no, it looks like he might never walk again, actually.
Well, right.
So, but he's alive. You are right. He's alive.
Yeah, but
I mean,
I guess he's not doing okay. What's the GoFund page?
It is, let me bring it up. I got it here on my phone.
Yeah.
GoFundMe.com.
Chris Mintz.
If you Google GoFundMe and Chris Mintz, MINTZ. You'll find it. Easily find it. It's actually on my Twitter page. I retweeted. Michael Savage put it up.
God, all these stories are so depressing. What a depressing day for stories, man.
They really are.
The Long Island lady, the Roseburg massacre. You know, the coach gets fired. I mean, what's good today? What's going on good? I mean, seriously, what have we talked about today that's good? This president is the worst ever. What are we talking about that's good?
I guess to go back to an imaginary world, put yourself in a sports.
The Jets.
Or the baseball season, playoffs start tonight.
Oh, that's right. That was a great conversation with Tom Verducci, actually. That was great.
I mean, if you want to hide your head in the sand.
There's only one game.
That's what
it's the Yankees and Astros.
Yeah, but that's what sports is for. Get away from reality and, all the depressing stuff and enjoy a baseball game tonight. And while this is kind of riveting. I mean, one game playoff. Come on, I'm pretty.
Very exciting. But what if you don't like baseball, like Ricky? He wants to talk about Kevin Durant, which nobody cares about. Nobody. Then what do you do?
Then you need, I guess what, mental health? I don't know. Get checked out.
Right. Do we have the Stephen A. Smith audio breaking it down with Kevin Durant? Stephen A. Smith says Kevin Durant wants to go to L.A., and Kevin Durant says, you're lying.
But wait, Kevin Durant and Derek Fisher are buddies, and they were going to go to New York.
He's going to New York.
And then he has a friend in Chicago.
Oh, he's going to Chicago.
And he likes some guy in Miami.
Well, that was like Carmelo Anthony. I mean, that was, God, how annoying was that?
How do you know? It's a year away. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Don't tell me he's going to be with the Lakers. You don't even know what the Lakers roster is going to look like in a year from now.
But again, for the 1,000th time, who cares? I mean, seriously.
It's not easy.
Right. Bro, you know I love the Knicks. You love the Knicks, too.
Yeah.
You know I watch every game.
You're a huge NBA fan.
You know I love college basketball. Like, Ricky doesn't. He has, compared to my appreciation for basketball, it's zero. I watch high school. I watch college. I love college basketball. And I watch every Knick game. I love basketball. But it's like, it's a silly sport. The whole thing is, the guys are unlikable. It's just something about the league that, for me at least, of all the professional sports,
I'm with you.
Baseball, football, and hockey, I care the least about the NBA. Maybe it's because the Knicks have sucked for quite some time now. We did a 54-win season 2 years ago out of nowhere, and we did win a playoff round that year, too. We beat Boston before losing to Indiana. But I just
to put it into perspective,
completely uninteresting, the players. And, like, Kevin Durant is a completely uninteresting guy. Like, what about Kevin Durant? Like you said earlier today, he likes his mom. What else do we, Even LeBron's a dick.
I think you got to be a lot younger than we are.
Is that why?
Yeah.
It's an age thing?
I think so.
You got to be an age to like sports?
Well, I mean, at least the NBA,
So the NBA got to be childish and stupid, basically. Seriously, I'm being serious.
Yeah, on some level, yeah. Just a little bit.
Because baseball has been around forever, and we can talk about a game tonight compared to a game in 1955 between the Dodgers and the Yankees, and you'll find some type of comparison. It will work. Football even, too. You can, but there's nothing about this NBA, nothing that looks anything, I mean anything, like the NBA when it was great. 70s, 80s, anything. There's, baseball, you can do it. Football, you can do it. Hockey, different. Hockey, we're so rabid, it doesn't matter. But NBA, it really is. It's for kids.
And the NBA regular season's almost meaningless. You can lose.
No, it is meaningless.
You can go 0-20 and still get the 7th seed and do something about it.
Well, you can't win, though. I mean, we talked about that with hockey. Like, you could be an 8th seed in hockey, you'll win the cup.
That's true.
In basketball, if you're the 8th seed, unless you're the Knicks at 99, like I said about a week ago, I mean, I still see Dikembe Mutombo laying on the court after Denver beat Seattle because an 8 beat a 1. For the most part, if you're a 6, 7, or 8, you're dead.
No, you're right about that. And normally it is the teams that, if you look, when the season starts, you can pick who the 4 teams are going to be in the Final Four. Right. You can get it 90% of the time. Right. You can get it right.
And the players, you can't interview any of them. I mean, you really can't because it's brutal. It's just, I don't know, the league, it doesn't work for me. And I'll watch every Knick game and I'll suffer through, 55 losses this year, if not more. Oh, 55, what am I, nuts? 60-plus losses this year. Hoping that Porzingis actually turns into a player. But it's a bad league. The players are not interesting, and it's for children. It really is. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll talk football with Andrew Abramson right after this.